Eli Mercer had always believed that fixing things was simpler than dealing with people. Machines followed rules. They had wires, circuits, and predictable outcomes. People, on the other hand, well, they were complicated, sometimes too complicated to understand. And yet, here he was, floating in the orbit of Kareth Prime, a strange, bustling station on the edge of known space, trying to fix a communication array that refused to cooperate. Eli wiped his hands on a greasy rag, cursing under his breath. The last time he had worked on this particular array, he had gotten 3 warning lights, 2 sparks, and a mild shock for his trouble. He doubted today would be any different. "Eli, are you coming or just hugging that panel all day?" came a voice over the comm. It was sharp but not unkind. He straightened. "I'm coming." Stepping out into the corridor, he noticed the subtle differences of life on Kareth. The station was massive, a floating city that orbited its small, blue planet below. Its halls were filled with creatures of every shape and color, many of whom ignored him entirely. To a human, they looked intimidating at first glance. Tentacles, multiple eyes, wings, scales. Yet, like most humans, Eli had a habit of staring anyway. The problem wasn't the aliens. The problem, he realized, was Lyra Vex. Dr. Lyra Vex, xenopsychologist extraordinaire, was standing in the middle of the corridor with her tablet clutched like a weapon. She was tall by human standards, and moved with precise confidence. Her hair, a shade humans called silver, fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She didn't look particularly stressed, but Eli had learned to read people like her, and if he could read her, it meant something serious was about to happen. "Mercer," she said, voice crisp. "I need a favor." Eli stopped dead. Favors from scientists, especially ones with academic authority, were usually either the end of something or the start of a very long trouble. Okay?" he said cautiously. She tapped her tablet, showing a holographic image of her current predicament. "I have a summit coming up. Important delegates from multiple species will attend. And, well, my species Vexians has certain expectations." Eli squinted. The hologram shifted to a complicated chart with symbols he didn't understand. "Expectations?" "Yes," she sighed. "Basically, attending alone would make me appear unstable, questionable, not credible." Her silver eyes fixed on his, unwavering. "I need someone to accompany me, to pose as my partner, my boyfriend." Eli blinked. He wasn't sure if he'd heard correctly. "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" She nodded. "For a few weeks. During the summit. Just act normal. Show affection when required. That's all. No actual commitment. Just appearances." Eli swallowed hard. He had expected many strange requests in his career. Fixing failing satellites, building emergency communication links, dealing with alien legal systems. But this? Pretend to be someone's boyfriend for political reasons? That was new. And, he began, hesitating. Lyra's eyes widened, then narrowed. There was no blush. Vexians didn't do blushes, but there was definitely a moment of something like surprise. "If the summit requires it." "Yes." Eli's stomach sank. Right. He was never good with physical closeness. In fact, he was notoriously awkward. But apparently, that didn't matter. Not here. "Think of it as a temporary partnership," she continued, flipping the hologram away. "You help me, and I help humanity maintain a fragile alliance. Refuse, and I find someone else. Preferably someone better at pretending to care." Eli grimaced. "I'm not great at pretending either. But, fine. I'll do it." Lyra gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Good, that's settled. But let me warn you, Mercer, this won't be easy. Some species can detect lies in microseconds. Any slip-up, and the consequences are unpleasant. Eli swallowed. I'm sure. And with that, the partnership began. The first day of training was a disaster. Eli had never been much of an actor. He stumbled over greetings, misread cues, and often made Lyra glare at him like he had just committed an unforgivable crime. The delegates of Kareth Prime were watching, and Eli could feel their many eyes on him. Tentacle eyes, compound eyes, glowing eyes, even some that seemed to float in the air independently. Smile, Lyra said sharply, adjusting his posture. Look relaxed, like you're naturally enjoying my presence. Not like I'm fixing your spaceship or something. I'm trying. He muttered. She raised an eyebrow. Try harder. This is politics. Your species is unorthodox. But that's why you're interesting. Eli had heard about humans being considered unpredictable in the galaxy, but he hadn't realized how dangerous unpredictability could be. Apparently, aliens considered emotions to be unreliable. Too much laughter, too much warmth, or too much fear could cause a political incident. Humans, however, were emotionally open. We laughed, we cried, we yelled, we hugged, and somehow, in every disastrous situation, we survived. Lyra's strategy, he realized, was simple. Use him as proof that humans could be both emotionally open and diplomatically useful. By the end of the day, they had made a few progress. Eli had learned that a hand on the shoulder could convey loyalty, a nod, confidence, a soft laugh at the right moment, trustworthiness. And while it was awkward, it was also not unbearable. Over dinner, he found himself reflecting. You really think this will work? He asked cautiously. Lyra sipped her tea, calm and composed. It has to. The summit will judge every action, every glance. If we fail, the alliance falls apart. And, Mercer, you might be the only one who can make it believable. He swallowed, feeling the weight of it all. Human or not, this was serious. Pretending to be someone's partner might not seem like much. But in the delicate dance of interstellar diplomacy, one wrong move could lead to disaster. Later, when the station lights dimmed and most delegates returned to their quarters, Eli found himself thinking about Lyra. She wasn't just a colleague or a strange boss demanding his assistance. She was sharp, clever, and surprisingly kind, maybe even brave. Pretending to be her partner would be hard. Pretending to care was going to be harder still. But for now, he had no choice. Tomorrow, the real training would begin, and the galaxy would be watching. The morning light of Kareth Prime streamed through the station's panoramic windows, bouncing off the polished floors and alien architecture. Eli Mercer adjusted his jacket nervously, staring at his reflection in a translucent wall panel. He looked almost human. Well, he was human, but he did not feel ready to face a room full of diplomats from multiple species. Lyra Vex approached him from the side, calm and precise as always. Her silver hair caught the light, giving her an almost ethereal glow. She gave him a small nod. Are you ready, Mercer? Eli swallowed. Ready as I'll ever be. She tilted her head slightly, the motion subtle but commanding. Remember, the summit is about appearances, gestures, and small talk. Any misstep could cost us credibility. Smile. Nod. Look invested. He nodded. Got it. Smile, nod, look invested. I can do that. They entered the main hall together. The air inside was thick with tension, punctuated by the low hum of hovering delegates and the occasional chime of a translator device. Alien species of all shapes and sizes mingled, some with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, others with dozens of eyes blinking independently. Tentacles curled nervously here and there, and a few wings flapped impatiently. Eli felt immediately out of place. He was used to machines that beeped, cables that sparked, and systems that either worked or didn't. But these creatures were alive, unpredictable, and most importantly, capable of reading human expressions in ways he could not yet understand. A high-pitched voice echoed across the hall. "Ah, Dr. Vex." Lyra straightened, exuding confidence. Eli followed her lead, offering a tentative smile. "Hello," he said, awkwardly placing his hand over hers as protocol demanded. The delegate, a creature with translucent skin and multiple rotating eyes, tilted its head and stared at Eli. Eli froze. He had no idea what the gaze meant. Was it approval, suspicion, or hunger? He quickly decided to smile. "Your companion is human?" the delegate asked. Its voice was like wind passing through hollow metal tubes. "Yes," Lyra replied smoothly. "Eli Mercer, from Earth." Eli nodded. "Pleasure to meet you." He tried to sound confident, but ended up sounding like a robot trying to act human. "Ah, interesting," the delegate murmured, eyes rotating faster. "Humans are unpredictable." Eli felt a shiver. That was one way to put it. As they moved through the hall, Lyra leaned slightly toward him. "Remember," she whispered, "small gestures matter. Touch my arm lightly if they look suspicious. Smile at me if someone interrupts. Make me seem approachable." Eli nodded, though his stomach twisted nervously. Touching someone lightly? Smiling at the right moment? He had never realized diplomacy could be so physically demanding. The first conversation was tense but manageable. Lyra explained her research on alien communication patterns, and Eli filled in gaps where her explanations required human analogies. Surprisingly, the other delegates leaned in. They were curious. Humans, it seemed, were fascinating precisely because they did not hide emotions. During a break, a particularly imposing delegate approached them. Its form was massive, covered in crystalline plates that refracted the light, making it look both beautiful and dangerous. "You, human," it said, addressing Eli. "You pretend. Your emotions are false?" Eli froze. The question hit like a hammer. Did they suspect the truth? Lyra's hand brushed against his. Subtle but intentional, a gesture of reassurance. "No," Eli replied carefully. I care, in ways humans always do." The delegates' crystal plates shimmered in confusion. "Humans, unpredictable. They claim sincerity and deception? That's one way to look at it," Eli said, hoping he sounded convincing. Lyra gave him a quick nod. The delegate seemed satisfied, retreating with a series of clicks and hums that sounded suspiciously like laughter. Eli exhaled sharply. "That could have gone worse." Lyra smiled faintly. "You handled it well. Humans are persuasive in ways other species underestimate." Eli frowned. "I'm not sure if I should take that as a compliment." "You should," Lyra said lightly. "We'll need that kind of unpredictability more than once today." As the summit progressed, Eli realized how fragile the political situation truly was. Each species had its own rules, its own expectations, its own ways of detecting sincerity or the lack of it. One misstep could mean lost alliances, trade sanctions, or worse. And yet, humans emotional humans, had a kind of advantage that no alien had predicted. They laughed when something was funny. They showed concern when it was needed. They touched, nodded, and reacted naturally. Where others were calculated and stiff, humans were fluid and alive. Eli began to understand why Lyra had chosen him. By midday, they had successfully navigated several tense conversations. Delegates whispered among themselves, clearly impressed. Eli even managed to make a few small jokes, carefully measured. Of course, and Lyra laughed at the right moments, reinforcing their bond. During lunch, Lyra leaned toward him again, lowering her voice. "You're doing better than I expected. But remember, appearances can't be forced. The summit tests instinct as much as skill." Eli nodded, wiping his brow. "Instincts. Right. Humans are instinctual. I get that." "Good," she said. "Just keep being yourself, as much as possible, but measured." Always measured. He frowned. That sounds contradictory. Welcome to diplomacy, Lyra said with a soft smile. Where contradictions are normal, and the unexpected can save or ruin you. In the afternoon, things took a surprising turn. A rival delegation, led by a creature with sleek, black exoskeletons and piercing red eyes, approached. They were the ones rumored to be looking for weaknesses, ready to exploit any hint of dishonesty. You, their leader hissed, addressing Eli. Pretend. You lie. Your actions are false. Eli's stomach twisted. He felt panic rising, but he remembered Lyra's earlier advice. He took a slow breath, placing a hand on her arm as a sign of loyalty. I may have started pretending, he said firmly, but I stand by her. That's real. That's human. The alien paused, as if trying to compute something impossible. Their eyes flickered with confusion. Humans. Unpredictable. Illogical. Yet, admirable? Eli shrugged. We're complicated like that. The alien hesitated, then nodded once, retreating. Lyra's hand lingered on his briefly. You handled that perfectly, she said, voice low and approving. By evening, Eli was exhausted but exhilarated. He had survived his first full day pretending to be someone's partner in front of the galaxy. But he also realized something more important. The role wasn't just acting. It was learning to understand, to react, and to communicate in ways he had never needed with machines. As they walked back to their quarters, Lyra spoke quietly. Mercer, you may not realize it yet, but humans have a unique power. Your emotions, your instincts, they can influence an entire room. Even species who think they understand the universe. Today, you used that power. And you did it well. Eli glanced at her, unsure if he should be flattered or embarrassed. So, I'm a diplomatic weapon now? Maybe, she said, smiling faintly. But a human one. Unpredictable, emotional, and stubbornly loyal. That combination is effective, Eli chuckled. I guess that's better than being a useless machine then. She smiled at him again, this time without the usual professional mask. It's more than that. You're more than you realize. Later, alone in his quarters, Eli reflected on the day. Pretending to be Lyra's boyfriend had seemed ridiculous at first, but now he understood the stakes. His awkwardness, his honesty, his very human way of reacting. It was part of a strategy no alien could have predicted, and somewhere deep down, Eli admitted to himself, it didn't feel entirely like pretending. He wasn't sure what that meant yet. But he knew one thing. The summit was only the beginning, and the galaxy was watching. The next morning, Eli woke with a dull ache in his shoulders. Pretending to be Lyra's partner was tiring mentally, physically, and emotionally. He had spent most of the previous day walking a careful line between sincerity and acting, trying not to make mistakes in front of dozens of alien delegates. Lyra knocked gently on his door. Are you awake? She asked, her tone calm but firm. I'm awake, Eli replied, sitting up. Barely. Good, she said, entering the room. She carried her tablet, already displaying a series of charts and notes. We need to review the schedule for today. The rival coalition is hosting a formal dinner tonight, and they'll test our credibility. Eli groaned. They're really going to make us prove we're a real couple? Exactly, Lyra said. They're looking for any sign of weakness. A fake gesture, hesitation, or lack of emotion could give them leverage against both of us and humanity. Eli ran a hand through his hair. Why did I agree to this again? Because you're human, Lyra said simply. And humans do things no other species can. You're unpredictable in a useful way. He raised an eyebrow. Useful, huh? I feel more like a walking liability. Lyra smiled faintly. You're better than you think. But remember, today will be harder than yesterday. Stay close. Observe, and respond naturally. Instinct matters more than training at this point. Eli sighed. He had spent his whole life relying on logic, systems, and predictable outcomes. Humans' emotions had always been messy. But now he was learning that they could also be a weapon, a subtle, persuasive weapon that no alien could replicate. The formal dinner was held in a grand hall suspended over Kareth Prime's surface. Glass floors offered a dizzying view of the planet below. Delegates from every major species attended. Dressed in ceremonial attire, Eli felt conspicuously out of place in his simple suit, yet he tried to stand tall, following Lyra's example. As they entered, the rival coalition's leader, the black exoskeleton alien from the previous day, approached with a thin smile. Its red eyes glinted in the chandelier light. "Ah, Dr. Vex," it said, voice like grinding stone, "and your human companion." Eli's stomach twisted. He could sense that this dinner would not be casual. Every word, gesture, and glance would be analyzed. A single misstep could undo all the progress they had made. Lyra leaned slightly toward him. "Remember, gestures matter. Small touches, attentive glances. Nothing too obvious, nothing too cold." Eli nodded. He had been practicing, but the stakes had never been higher. The dinner began with polite conversation. But the rival delegation wasted no time in probing. Their questions were subtle, designed to test authenticity. "You have been accompanying Dr. Vex for several days now," the leader said. "Do you genuinely enjoy her company?" Eli froze for a split second. Lyra's hand brushed against his arm, a gentle reminder. He swallowed and answered carefully. "I enjoy working with her. She's brilliant, insightful, and she has a way of making people feel understood. That counts for something, doesn't it?" The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "Interesting. And yet humans are easily deceived. How can we be certain of your intentions?" Eli met its gaze steadily. "I can't speak for all humans," he said. "But I choose my actions. If I stand by someone, it's because I want to, not because I'm forced to. That is real." "Everyone." There was a moment of silence. Then, the alien leader's exoskeleton shimmered in an unreadable pattern. It stepped back, as if reconsidering everything it thought it knew about humans. Lyra's hand lingered on Eli's arm briefly. "Good," she whispered. "That was perfect." Eli exhaled slowly, but he knew the danger was far from over. The rival coalition would not stop testing them. Later, during a break, a whisper spread through the hall. Someone had discovered the truth. Eli and Lyra were not actually bonded. Eli felt a chill. "They know?" Lyra frowned. "Maybe. It's only a matter of time before the news reaches the wrong ears. And in Kareth law, pretending a bond without intent is a serious offense. Exile, or worse, is possible." Eli's stomach sank. "So, we could get thrown out of the station? Or worse?" "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "And the humans here, our allies, can only protect us so far. After that, it's on us to navigate the fallout." Eli swallowed hard, pretending had been stressful enough. Now it could get dangerous. The first sign of trouble came during a private negotiation with the black exoskeleton delegate. The alien's tone was sharp, accusatory. "It has come to my attention," it said, "that your companion may be deceptive. How do you justify this?" Eli glanced at Lyra. She gave him a subtle nod, urging him to speak. He took a deep breath. "It's true," he admitted. "I wasn't supposed to be here as her partner. That was pretend. But what matters is what I choose to do now. I stand by her. I protect her. I support her. That choice is real, even if the arrangement began as pretend." The delegate froze, its red eyes narrowing as if trying to compute something impossible. Eli continued, keeping his voice calm but steady. In the end, he said, actions speak louder than labels. My loyalty is real. My intent is real. And if that is what you mean by sincerity, then I am sincere. The alien leader's exoskeleton shimmered in a strange pattern, and it stepped back. For a moment, Eli thought it might attack. Then, slowly, it nodded. Humans. Unpredictable. Illogical. Yet, compelling. Eli felt a small surge of relief. One obstacle had been overcome. But he knew others would come. The rival coalition would continue testing them, searching for flaws. As the dinner progressed, Eli began to notice a change. Delegates whispered, observed, and reacted differently. They were intrigued by the human, by his unpredictability, honesty, and willingness to act on instinct. Lyra noticed it too. You're doing more than pretending, she said softly during a quiet moment. You're influencing them. Humans have a power others don't. It's subtle, but it works. Eli smiled faintly. I guess being awkward has its uses. She chuckled, a light sound that made him feel less tense. It's more than that. You're showing them that loyalty, care, and honesty can matter more than appearances. That's revolutionary for them. Eli felt a flicker of pride, quickly tempered by worry. I hope they don't start expecting all humans to behave this way. Perhaps, she said, but for now, it's enough that you did it when it counted. The evening ended with an unexpected twist. The rival coalition, instead of exposing them, approached with an unusual proposition. You, the black exoskeleton leader said, have demonstrated qualities we did not anticipate. Loyalty, honesty, protection, unusual for your species. Perhaps, humans can be allies in ways we did not foresee. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. You're proposing a temporary alliance? Yes, the delegate said. An experiment. Observe humans. Learn from them. If nothing else, it proves unpredictability has value. Eli blinked. This was beyond what he had imagined when he agreed to pretend. From awkward fake boyfriend to potential interstellar ambassador of human unpredictability, the day had taken a turn he could never have predicted. As they walked back to their quarters, Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. Mercer, today, you did more than act. You changed their perception of humans. That's extraordinary. Eli shook his head. I'm just a guy who doesn't like lying to machines. I didn't mean to do anything extraordinary. Intent doesn't matter, Lyra said softly. Actions do. And yours have consequences far beyond what you realize. Eli's mind raced. Pretending was dangerous, yes. But being human, in all its emotional, awkward, unpredictable glory, might be humanity's greatest strength, and if he could survive pretending for just a few weeks, maybe he could help humans prove that they belonged among the stars on their own terms. As he lay in bed that night, Eli realized that the lines between pretend and real had begun to blur. Standing by Lyra wasn't just a performance anymore. It had become a choice, a human choice. And in a galaxy that feared emotion, that choice might be more powerful than any weapon. The days following the formal dinner were tense but revealing. Eli had survived the first test of their pretend relationship. And, unexpectedly, humans had become a point of fascination in the eyes of many alien delegates. News of his actions and his honesty spread quietly through Kareth Prime, drawing attention not only from allies but from curious onlookers across species. Lyra Vex studied the implications carefully. Eli, she said as they reviewed the summit's latest reports, it seems your unpredictability is creating a ripple effect. Some delegates are rethinking their social protocols. Humans are being seen as exceptions. Eli raised an eyebrow. Exceptions? You mean like lucky anomalies? No, Lyra said firmly. Humans are being seen as something more powerful in ways no one expected. Your behavior, our partnership, even if it began as a lie, is changing how they think about loyalty, emotion, and trust. Eli frowned. So, pretending to be your boyfriend somehow made me a role model for interstellar politics? Not a role model, Lyra corrected. A human example. A standard. Something new that doesn't exist anywhere else. And that makes us influential. Eli didn't know whether to laugh or panic. Influence? In a galaxy where every gesture could trigger an interstellar incident. That sounded terrifying. The next challenge arrived sooner than expected. A high council of species gathered in the central forum. A grand amphitheater floating in zero gravity. Holographic banners from multiple worlds decorated the space, each representing a vote, a law, or a code. Lyra had been invited to present her research on interspecies communication, an honor that could significantly strengthen humanity's standing, but she wouldn't go alone. Eli felt the familiar tension as they entered the chamber. Delegates watched them intently, some curious, some skeptical. The whispers of human unpredictability had traveled fast. Everyone wanted to see if the phenomenon was real. Lyra began her presentation, her voice clear, precise, and commanding. Eli stood beside her, holding her tablet, nodding, and occasionally making small gestures of support. Every movement, every glance, was calculated to reinforce their bond, and, unintentionally, it reinforced the human advantage. Midway through the session, an elder of a traditionally strict species raised a tentacle. "Dr. Vex," it said, "your companion seems to act with sincere loyalty. How do we know this is not manipulation?" Eli's pulse quickened. He remembered the lessons from the dinner. Honesty, paired with action, mattered more than words. He placed a hand lightly on Lyra's shoulder, smiled, and said, "I may have started pretending, but the choice to stand by her is mine. That choice is real. That's human." A hush fell over the chamber. Aliens looked at one another, clearly confused. Some whispered among themselves. The elder's eyes blinked in rapid succession. A sign of contemplation. Humans choose loyalty voluntarily. Intriguing. Lyra allowed herself a faint smile. Eli's instinctive honesty had done what years of diplomacy might not have achieved. After the presentation, Eli and Lyra retreated to a quieter hall. "You did it again," she said softly. "You've made them rethink their rules. Humans are now officially interesting." Eli laughed nervously. "Interesting, huh? I was hoping for helpful or adequate." "Interesting can be more powerful than helpful," Lyra replied. "They're realizing that emotional intelligence, loyalty, and instinctive care can be assets. That's something no other species can replicate fully. And that puts humanity in a unique position." Eli tried to process it. Humans, in a galaxy that valued logic and predictability, could now influence alien laws simply by acting human. His awkwardness, sincerity, and willingness to commit no matter the start had created a new diplomatic standard. But not everyone was pleased. The rival coalition from before observed silently, their red-eyed leader clicking in irritation. They had underestimated humanity, and, more importantly, underestimated Eli. "They're dangerous," it hissed. "Not through weapons or technology, but because they are unpredictable. They can't be controlled." Lyra noticed the tension in the rival delegates and realized that the summit was shifting. The old rules, the rigid codes of interstellar diplomacy, were no longer sufficient. Humans had introduced something new. The human exception proof that loyalty and emotion could alter politics. That night, as Eli and Lyra walked through the corridors back to their quarters, Lyra said quietly, "Mercer, you've changed things. Your actions are being noticed across every council. They're calling it the human exception." Eli blinked. "The human exception? That sounds like a law I might break by accident." "It's more like a concept," Lyra explained. "Your presence has shown that emotions, choices, and instinct can be strategic. Other species are starting to accept that humans can operate differently, and that could change everything." Eli exhaled. He had never wanted to be influential. He had wanted to fix machines and avoid problems. But now he realized humans could influence an entire galaxy without firing a single weapon, just by being themselves. The following day brought unexpected challenges. Several minor factions approached Lyra with questions, asking to study humans, learn their ways, and even adopt human-inspired diplomatic methods. Eli found himself overwhelmed by attention tentacles, waving, eyes blinking rapidly, and strange gestures that he tried to interpret. Eli, Lyra whispered during a break, you're becoming a living example. They're curious about humans in ways they've never been curious before. Watch your words. Your actions carry weight. Eli nodded, feeling the pressure. Every smile, every nod, every gesture could influence policies, alliances, and interstellar trade agreements. Pretending to be someone's boyfriend had evolved into something far larger. And yet, through all the pressure, Eli noticed something more personal. His feelings toward Lyra were changing. He had started pretending, but the line between act and reality blurred. Her confidence, intelligence, and subtle kindness had grown on him. Standing by her wasn't just pretend anymore, it was a choice he wanted to make, not one he was forced into. Lyra, for her part, seemed aware of the shift. She maintained professionalism publicly but allowed small private gestures, light touches, approving glances that encouraged him and reinforced their bond. It was careful, controlled, and deliberate, but it also felt genuine. The climax of this part came during a debate over human participation in interstellar policy. The rival coalition tried to discredit humans, arguing that unpredictability was a weakness. Eli stepped forward during the discussion. Unpredictability is not weakness, he said, voice firm. It's adaptability. It's the ability to care, to act, to choose. Humans stand by those they trust, protect those they respect, and learn from every interaction. That's what makes us human. And it's why we belong in the galaxy, not behind the scenes, but as equals. Silence followed. Alien delegates exchanged glances, some shocked, some contemplative. The black exoskeleton leader blinked its red eyes, struggling to respond. Lyra placed her hand briefly on Eli's arm. Well said, she murmured. For the first time, Eli realized that pretending had stopped being just a survival tactic. It had become a catalyst. His actions had forced a galaxy to reconsider its assumptions, to see that emotions, loyalty, and instinct could be strengths, not liabilities. By the end of the day, a tentative agreement emerged. Humans would be given official recognition in interstellar councils, not just as observers but as contributors. It was a small step, but a monumental one. An acknowledgement that the human way of being, flawed and emotional though it might be, had value others could not ignore. That night, Eli and Lyra returned to their quarters, exhausted but triumphant. Lyra looked at him with an expression that was more than professional approval. Something warmer. Something genuine. You did it, Mercer, she said softly. You've changed minds, rules, and expectations. Humanity will be remembered here. Because of you. Eli shook his head. I was just trying not to screw up. Trying? You succeeded beyond measure, she said. Humans are unique, unpredictable, emotional, loyal. And now, other species have to acknowledge it. That's the human exception. Eli smiled faintly. The human exception. I guess I can live with that. As he lay in bed that night, Eli realized something profound. Pretending had begun as a simple task, a temporary partnership to satisfy alien social codes. But the consequences had grown far larger. Humans, by being themselves, had started to reshape the galaxy. And he, a single awkward human, had played a central role. For the first time, Eli felt a strange mixture of pride and responsibility. Pretending had stopped being safe. Pretending had started something real. And in the cold, vast galaxy, humans were finally proving that their greatest strength wasn't their technology, or their numbers, or even their courage. It was their choice to care, to act, and to stand together. The final day of the summit dawned over Kareth Prime, a brilliant swirl of blues, greens, and the warm glow of artificial lights reflecting off the station's metallic halls. Delegates from dozens of species filled the central forum, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated, some walked, some hovered, but all were waiting for the closing session. A vote on new interstellar protocols, including formal recognition of human participation. Eli Mercer adjusted his jacket, feeling the familiar tension in his stomach. The past week had been a whirlwind. Pretending to be Lyra's partner, navigating alien social codes, and somehow turning human unpredictability into a diplomatic advantage. Every word he had spoken, every gesture he had made, had carried consequences far beyond what he had imagined. Lyra appeared beside him, as calm and composed as ever. She offered a small smile. "Ready, Mercer?" He nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "As ready as I'll ever be." Her silver hair shimmered in the light, her eyes scanning the room with quiet confidence. "Remember," she whispered, "you've done more than pretend. Today, it's about choice. Be yourself. And let that speak louder than any act." Eli swallowed. Be himself. It sounded simple, but in a room filled with delegates capable of detecting even the smallest hesitation, it was terrifying. Yet somehow, he trusted Lyra's judgment. The session began with formal introductions, speeches, and debates. Many delegates spoke cautiously, acknowledging the human exception that Eli had unintentionally created. The black exoskeleton leader, still observing from the side, watched with red eyes flickering in unreadable patterns. Others whispered to one another, clearly intrigued by humans' ability to combine emotion with action. When it was Lyra's turn to speak, she addressed the assembly with grace and authority. "Today," she said, "we are not simply discussing policies. We are discussing trust, choice, and the value of sincerity. In a galaxy that often fears emotion, humanity has shown us that care, loyalty, and instinct are not weaknesses, they are strengths." She paused, glancing at Eli. "We have learned that being human is unpredictable. But unpredictability, when paired with honesty and courage, can change minds, shape decisions, and forge alliances." A murmur spread through the forum. Some delegates nodded, some blinked rapidly, processing the statement. It was true. Humans had introduced a concept no other species had mastered. Eli felt a strange swell of pride, though he quickly reminded himself that it wasn't about him alone. Humans, collectively, had made this impact. During the voting process, Eli and Lyra remained side by side. He offered small gestures of support. A reassuring glance, a light touch on her arm, a nod of confidence. These were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they were human gestures, and they carried weight. The first vote was cautious. Delegates debated whether humans' unpredictable nature could be trusted in official matters. Eli felt his chest tighten as the room considered the implications. Then something remarkable happened. Several species began to reference his actions directly. The elder tentacled delegate from the dinner spoke first. "Humans have demonstrated loyalty, instinct, and honesty," it said. "Though their emotions are unpredictable, they are genuine. That is a strength we cannot ignore." Others followed. Shimmering creatures, metallic-skinned beings, and even the black exoskeleton rivals voiced agreement. Slowly, the consensus shifted. By the end of the session, humans were officially recognized as full participants in interstellar policy discussions. A quiet cheer, unseen by most, echoed between Eli and Lyra. They had done it. Humanity had been validated not through force, not through technology, but by simply being themselves. After the session, the formalities ended, and the delegates began to disperse. Eli and Lyra walked through the station's observation deck, gazing at the swirling planet below. The city lights sparkled like stars brought to ground. The galaxy was vast, complex, and dangerous, but it was also more accepting now. thanks to humans' simple, honest choices. Lyra broke the silence. Mercer, today, you were more than a partner, more than a human example. You were the reason many of them began to see the value of humanity. Eli shrugged, still processing. I was just standing by you. That's exactly it, she said softly. Choosing to stand by someone even when it's inconvenient or risky is what makes humans exceptional. You've changed minds, Mercer. You've shown a galaxy what humans can do when they act with care and intent. He looked down, unsure how to respond. All week, he had pretended. And now, something real had begun to emerge. That night, as they returned to their quarters, the unspoken tension between them grew heavier. The summit was over. The political games, the delicate dances of diplomacy, the careful gestures they had succeeded, but the question remained, what about them? Lyra turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the soft glow of the corridor lights. Mercer, the summit is done. The pretending, it doesn't have to continue. You can go back to your life. And I'll go back to mine. Eli hesitated. Part of him wanted to step away, to return to the simplicity of machines and logic. But another part, the part that had grown attached to her, that had felt the warmth of connection, loyalty, and care, couldn't leave. He took a deep breath. I don't want this to be just pretending anymore, he said quietly. I mean, I started out acting, but I care. That's real. I choose to be here. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Lyra's expression softened. Mercer, she whispered. Her hand reached for his, lightly brushing his fingers. Then we don't need to pretend. The rest can wait. What matters is now. What we choose. Eli felt a strange sense of relief. Pretending had served its purpose. It had allowed him to survive, to influence, and to protect. But now, choice replaced act. Care replaced obligation. And in that choice, something far more powerful than diplomacy emerged: connection. Over the next few days, they walked the station together, not as actors, not as diplomats, but as two people discovering the possibility of something real. The galaxy had changed its rules, acknowledging humans' value. But Eli realized that the most important change had happened within him. He was no longer just a human pretending to be someone else's partner. He was someone capable of choosing loyalty, care, and connection, exactly the qualities that had made humans exceptional in the first place. Lyra leaned against the railing, looking out at the planet below. The galaxy will never forget this summit, she said, and they won't forget the human way. They've seen that emotion, instinct, and loyalty matter. That's a legacy you helped create. Eli, he smiled. A real, unguarded smile. I guess humans aren't just lucky, they're influential, unpredictable, but influential. 7. Comin'. Exactly, she said softly. And now, we get to explore what that influence means together. Eli laughed lightly. Together, he echoed. For the first time, the word felt true, not pretend. The stars beyond the station glittered. Endless and infinite. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, unknown dangers, and endless possibilities. And for the first time, Eli Mercer realized that humans, messy, emotional, unpredictable humans, were not only capable of surviving in such a galaxy, but of thriving. They could change minds, shape laws, and influence civilizations not with weapons or technology, but with something far more enduring: their choices, their care, and their courage to act with heart. And as he stood beside Lyra, Eli knew that the pretend partnership had ended, but the bond they had built, through trust, loyalty, and honesty, would last far longer than any summit, any law, or any diplomatic victory. In a universe that had long feared emotion, humans had proven something extraordinary. That connection, choice, and care could be stronger than fear, and that love, even one that began as an act, could be real, transformative, and powerful. Eli took Lyra's hand in his, firmly but gently. "So, what now?" "Now," she said, smiling, "we go forward. Together. As humans. As ourselves. And as something the galaxy has never seen before." Eli laughed softly. "Together," he repeated, feeling a warmth that no machine could ever replicate. And in the quiet hum of Kareth Prime, as stars swirled endlessly outside the observation windows, the galaxy waited, watching, learning, and finally realizing that humans were not just passengers among the stars. They were a force, unpredictable and emotional, capable of changing everything. And Eli Mercer, the reluctant human who had once pretended to be someone's partner, smiled, knowing that the best part of the journey had only just begun.